I did record 2 gameplays before I respec him. Unfortunately, I uh, I forgot to make a build video before I did the gameplay. So um, I'll go through here and show you what the original build was. The first build was just a standard melee build. Um, I'm not a big fan of melee builds, and I know the Krogan Vanguard is more the melee character, but I'm still experimenting with the Krogan Vanguard right now. I don't want to do a melee with him, but his rage. So I'm gonna come up with a different build for the Krogan Vanguard. But I've always liked using the human Vanguard as the melee character. Because I like his melee better. I feel like it's smoother to punch than the headbutt. I don't know why. I feel like I die a lot more with the Krogan Vanguard. I don't know. I'm still kind of experimenting with that, but that's a video for another day. I have this set up for the actual the Biotic combo build, which is my new current favorite build. I've just been destroying with it. Like, when I come in first, it's usually by a couple thousand points, but oh man. Like, and I don't really focus on the scores, but on the Biotic combo build, I've got to the point where I've been like 10k ahead of other people. It's ridiculous. But for those of you who may not be familiar with the melee build, I'll go ahead and go through that first. The melee build is going to be, you can either do Nova or Shockwave on the melee build. The most important thing about the melee build is you want Charge, Apex, and Barrier. It's a common class, so you should get it to rank 10, but if you don't worry, you just need these 3. These 2 are absolutely optional. In fact, after I'd got him set up for the melee build, I didn't really know what to do with these 2. And you can do 5-3, 3-5, you can skip Nova, take Shockwave, skip Shockwave, take Nova, but I'll go into that a little more afterwards. So you'll take 6 in charge, you'll do that either way. You'll always take Radius with the melee build, because it staggers multiple people. That way when you're going in for the melee, if you're swamped, you get that few extra seconds to stun. Really helps out. Here you'll take weapons in melee. That way, for 3 seconds after charging, you'll get 30 extra melee damage, which is awesome. These are both alright. I prefer Bastion. Because after you put your passives in there, charge will go down to 8 seconds anyway. It'll go down to 6 seconds. It's normally 8. If you take Shock Trooper, I believe it drops it down to, you can get it down to like 3 seconds maybe. And you would think, it's the same amount of shields. But because this will give you 100%, and this will do, 50%, but twice as often. But you're not getting that damage, which is awesome. And most importantly, you're not getting that damage resistance. And believe it or not, every time I've tried to run Shock Trooper, and I've done it on multiple characters, multiple builds, I always just repeatedly die with Shock Trooper. Even though I'm getting the iframes from the charge and all that, the damage resistance from Bastion makes so much difference. Even though you can't charge as often, because you're getting all the shields back, getting 100% shields back plus the damage resistance will mean you can survive until your next charge. And that damage can make a difference on whether an enemy survives or not. So just being able to, because you're hitting multiple enemies with radius, that damage is helpful, because it might be what kills an enemy or 2 and takes the heat off you. Now we're not dealing with these two yet, but do remember that you'll always have 1 point in each. Nova, I believe, gives you some iframes, so, and charge will continue to cool down during the Nova animation. So you can always Nova even at 1 point, even on a melee build. Nova while you're waiting on charge, that'll give you some iframes. That'll let your charge come back. It's useful. Even if you take Shockwave, remember to use your Nova. In this game, it's awesome because you'll always have your 3 skills no matter how you spec. So take advantage of them. Even if you got 1 point, take advantage of it. Apex training. Even in Apex training, I think I take the power damage. Because while you are getting the weapons, the 15% weapon damage after a charge, you're going to be meleeing after a charge. You're not really going to be shooting your gun. Now, you can take a shotgun and get that 15% off that, but I prefer to take a pistol and maybe an ammo type and start setting off combos that way. But I think the 20% power damage really helps the charge. You're doing 20 extra damage to everybody you're hitting with the charge, and it'll make them go. That essentially does synergize with the melee because it's less times you have to punch them sometimes. So, and here, I like to take ammo and targeting. The spare ammo is just really good. If you can take advantage of the weak point damage. If you're on an objective or something and you can't really charge out of a upload or something, that does come in handy. So, in this, you don't want to be hovering as a Vanguard. You might be jumping around to kind of hit to charge enemies that are a little further away, but hovering as a Vanguard isn't a really good idea anyway. Here, either one of these is actually good for the melee build, because neither one of them really affects melee, so you're not losing out. If you're using something like the Hurricane, and you want to use like a Hurricane to like prime, accuracy, stability is really good. You will get that extra damage. I personally lean more towards Power Specialist. Once again, for the same reason I take the power damage here. The power damage, it's going to make your Biotic charge do more damage. The Power Force is good because it's going to knock them further away. Same thing with the Nova. Power Force is really overlooked sometimes. Doing a well-timed Nova with that Power Force can knock a couple red bar enemies off the map. And anytime you can do that, you're taking the heat off you, and that doesn't even really start to talk about the weapon weight capacity. So now you can carry better weapons. Now, that's not saying that heavier weapons are better in general, but you can go in with 2 weapons this way. You can go ahead and take like a Hurricane and then a shotgun, or like an Equalizer and a shotgun or something. So that might be the difference between taking a second weapon in. So I like Power Specialist even on the melee build. Barrier. Barrier, I like taking Unyielding Barrier. I like to have max. I just like the max shields. Anytime I can take max health or shields, I usually do. The delay reduction's good, but if you're doing it right, you'll continuously be charging and you'll be getting it all the way back anyway. That's also why I like the max shields, because when you charge, that's 30% more you get back. So, here, definitely Barrier Drain. This is the one thing the human Vanguard has over the Krogan, is by doing the melee, you're actually getting shields back. So, and you charge in and you just start punching, and every punch you're getting 15% shields back. And that's on top of the 50% melee damage you're getting. So, you get in and you just start punching, and it may not seem like a lot, that 15%, which this is good for that, because now that 15% is more. But if you charge in, as soon as you get out of those iframes, they're focus firing you down. So sometimes 15%, is it's enough to replace what you lose getting shot during the melee animation. So if they're focus firing you down while you're punching, you're getting that back. And that could hold you off until you get that charge back on and get 100% shields back. Here, I like saving barrier. I haven't really messed with active barrier much. I think on probably my Asari, one of the Asaris I think you take this. But the thing is, you're not really going to be getting biotic kills. You might if you Nova somebody off the map, you Shockwave combo or something like that. But this effect is better than this effect, and this is guaranteed. The thing is, you're not always going to get those shields back. You're not always going to get biotic kills. Saving barrier is one of the best perks in this game. Once you hit 20% health, you gain all of your shields back. And this can happen once every 15 seconds. It used to be 10, but they nerfed it, which is fine because they buffed everything else so much that it doesn't really matter. But that means you got your melee giving you shields back, you got your charge giving your shields back, and if something happens and you get stuck in a sticky situation, this can bail you out of that. Say you charge in and you get nailed by Hydra missiles or something, and it's like, oh crap, you're almost dead. You get this back, and I think everybody who uses this can, will testify that this has saved their ass more times they can count. It really is a difference maker, especially in an up close and personal build. Now, when I was doing the melee build, I was actually only level 19. I got level 20 while recording gameplay. I had taken Shockwave, I'd only got it to level 5. I hadn't really experimented with lifting Shockwave at the time. Now I know it's amazing, but I don't really know how well it'll work on the melee build, because you're not going to be focusing on combos. You could definitely take it if you want. I was running anti-armor, because that really helps against like Hydras or Fiends, things you don't necessarily want to charge into. That's really helpful. But charge, Apex, and Barrier are the 3 musts. Shockwave and Nova, how you want to spec those is completely personal preference. Once again, you could do 1 on Nova 6 Shockwave, 1 Shockwave 6 Nova, 5-3, 3-5. The important thing to note is that both of these have rank 6 that become primers. So if you do take whichever one you take, I'd highly suggest you take probably the primer. That's what I'm running on the combo build. But I think the anti-armor is like I said, it's good for when you can't really rush in and charge. Plus it's a detonator, it's good for setting things off. So still on the melee build, I had him set up a little bit different. I had him with a Crusader, and getting the 33% melee damage from here. I took the shotgun barrel over on the Equalizer. Equalizer, I also took the melee here. It is a little less than the shotgun melee optimizer. This is 29, I think the other one's 33. It's a 4% difference. It's not really a big deal. If you want to run both, that's cool. You can see that I'm overweight by 5%. If you go in here and you do take the Power Specialist, you'll be able to carry both of those without being over. So, and then of course melee build, you definitely want to take the Juggernaut Shield. That 10% extra shields, that's always helpful, but mostly you get 75% melee damage. It's awesome. You got so much melee synergy going on. You got your shields coming back. It's a good build. It's really what I would suggest this to beginners to make it through gold early on. In fact, I think this is how a lot of players made it through gold. Back before the power buffs, back before, hell, before patch 106, there were only a few characters that were actually viable on gold, and this was one of them. As far as consumables, definitely strength enhancers. Whichever level you have, you don't need 3. One's just fine. I would not use the 3 or the 4s unless you're on gold, of course. All of these builds that I do are spec towards gold difficulty, so definitely strength enhancer. That'll get your melee up. That's for sure. I would take that absolutely for sure. As far as your second one, I would make that I would do either a cyclonic or an ammo type. If you're gonna run an equalizer, take an ammo type. That way, when you charge, you're also setting off combos. And because of the radius on charge, you can set off multiple combos. In fact, in the combo build, in that gameplay, well, no, I don't know if it was a recorded gameplay, but there was a gameplay where I did a Nova, primed 3 people with it, and then charged and got 3 Biotic combos. So, it's pretty awesome. But definitely take ammo if you want to set off combos with your charge, or a cyclonic just for the extra defense. And with that, we're going to go ahead and get into the combo build. And that's the build I have set up now. Now, I do have gameplays of both of these builds. I just figured if I'm going to talk about one, I might as well talk about both. Now, this one also has a really good synergy to it. It was a little tough, especially on a Vanguard, to skip out on these two. But this is one of those rare occasions where you really want all 3 of these at 6. And, in fact, it might be easier just to start here. With Barrier, take rank 4, just take the shields. Saving Barrier would be nice, but it's definitely, with this build, there's really no other points to take. You really need all 3 of these at 6. That's absolutely important. And then you can split these 2. I like 4-4. Because I at least get this power damage. I could end up taking this for that extra combo damage, but you really do not need it with this build. And I especially do not want to... I don't want to give up the 55% shields. But let's we'll start with Shockwave, and why I have we'll start with charge. That's fine. Now, this is all about setting up and detonating combos. Normally, just as the character is, he has 2 detonators, no primes. So he has charge and shockwave to detonate, but he doesn't have a way to prime, unless you take an ammo. But the way we set him up is he ends up with 1 prime, 1 detonator, and shockwave that can do both. And that opens up so many things you can do. Now, with other builds, you might take damage or you might take recharge speed. The thing about this build is I'm always a guy who likes, with the exception of charge, I always prefer to take damage over like radius or anything like that. But radius makes this build. Absolutely makes this build. And of course we take the radius here, like I said, it'll set off multiple combos. Power synergy, that way if you Nova or Shockwave afterwards, they get 25% force and damage. Like I said, force is really overlooked. The way you set this build up, your charge, Nova, and Shockwave will fling red bar enemies off the map. And sometimes they'll fling shielded enemies off the map too, with the way it's set up. Of course, I've already explained to you why I prefer Bastion on this one. Because that damage is just gonna... You want the damage because this is a power build now. Nova. Take Seismic Nova, and this primes everybody that Nova hits. Now, I was told, I saw this on someone else's video, that Seismic Nova does not prime shielded enemies. That it'll prime red bar and armored enemies, just not shielded. And here it says only unarmored, unshielded, normal size enemies are affected. Now, I don't know if that's referring to the priming or being knocked in the air. I know you have to have a red bar enemy to knock them in the air. And I know for sure armored enemies and red bar enemies are primed. The last game I'm pretty sure I primed a sharpshooter. But I haven't really tested it fully. So here, I take anti-shield because I thought about running like anti-shield on Nova and anti-armor on Shockwave. I thought that'd be a good balance, maybe for another Vanguard build. But I take anti-shield here because of what I was saying about the shielded enemies. Because there's a chance that you could strip those shields and make them fly off like they're a red bar enemy anyway. And normally I take anti-armor, especially since most people fight outlaws. Most people will have anti-armor specs anyway. But for this I really like the anti-armor because I know for sure it'll prime armor targets. But still not sure about the shielded targets, so we do that to strip those shields. Shockwave, on the other hand, why it will only... we take the lifting Shockwave. It'll suspend them in midair, but only for red bar enemies. But it'll prime everything. So, you can... Even if it's not flinging them in the air, like the Nova, it'll prime them as well. So, as much as the damage and the recharge speed are pretty much good for any other build, you want the radius and the reach. That makes your Shockwave insanely huge. And not only is that going to prime everything in its path, it'll detonate everything in its path. So you set these for a synergy of, I like to charge in, and if anything's primed that'll explode. You Nova, that'll prime all the group of enemies you just charged into. Shockwave that detonates, and anything that isn't detonate can be detonated by charge afterwards. It's just a fucking Biotic combo like party. It at this point is the best combo build I've seen so far. I've only played with it a few times, and every time I've come about 10k in points ahead of everybody else. It's fucking brutal. As far as a loadout, you need the same thing as a melee build. You don't need a shotgun. I just run an equalizer. I usually take the clip size. You can take the receiver if you want. I like running barrel and clip size on this build. Get rid of the shotgun, you're not going to have the capacity weight with this build. And then on this one you'll take the additive war amp, because that just makes the biotic powers even better. Consumables. I don't remember if I took an ammo in the gameplay or not. You don't have to. It's viable without it. You're going to be doing so many combos regardless. But you can take an ammo for sure. You're not going to have the tankiness that you would have a melee build. Cyclonic works. Personally, I think the best combination here is to take an efficiency mod for those recharge speeds. That way you're just going to be constantly charging to get your shit back. Nova and Shockwave take the heat off you. It's good. And then you can take ammo if you want to prime things even further. And yeah, that looks about it. So those are the two builds. I've done gameplays for both of them. Those will both be uploaded at the same time. So I'm also going to be working on a new Krogan Vanguard build that I don't want to make it the typical melee build. That's why I was starting to experiment with this. And there is a safer power build. I was working on a third Vanguard build. It's similar to this, except it's a lot safer. In fact, you would completely skip Nova, which you completely skip Nova, take Power Specialist, take Saving Barrier, and you won't have the Seismic Nova to prime all those enemies. You'll still have the Shockwave to do it, and you won't die as frequently. You probably won't need the Cyclonic. That is a safer way to play it, but it's not as effective. It is a risk-reward thing with Vanguards. That's Vanguards by their nature. They are risk-reward. So, hope you guys enjoy the gameplay. Like I said, I actually did change the color on the Vanguards. That way, the different builds would be different colors. But then I forgot to record the build anyway, so purple Vanguard will be the melee, and of course the silver will be the biotic combo one. So, and with that, guys, I hope you enjoy the gameplay. That'll be uploaded shortly afterwards. And if you guys have any requests as to what build you'd like to see next, go ahead, hit me up in the comments, comment, like, subscribe, and share, and let me know if you like the builds. You guys take it easy.